Alex, the Corporate Director of Silicone Expo. Welcome to the Silicone Sessions, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Principal and Owner of Access Technologies, Advisory Board Member, and all-round legend, Steve Savastano. How you doing, Steve?
Great, just great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, great to have you. And as we just said, that is a freaky photo of your daughter in the background. It's making my legs feel funny.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, it's her idea of living on the edge. It's up in Boone in North Carolina, Blowing Rock area. It's a beautiful place to go hiking if you enjoy hiking. We're not far from there, about 45 minutes.
Cool, cool. Steve, I'm going to jump right into it. Very early on the launch of Silicone Expo in June, you joined the advisory board, you exhibited in a big way, and you've been incredibly supportive of the show since then. My question is, why have you supported us so much?
Well, as we spoke earlier, my entire career has been in silicones, and it's a very young chemistry, and relatively speaking, it's been around for 75 years. And when I first got exposed to it, it was just an amazing piece of technology that touches so many different parts of our life, the human experience, as we talked earlier. So excited about finally getting involved in an organization that allows us to expose it to everybody, not specific industries, but just a broad base opportunity for everyone to come see what this material can do for mankind.
Fantastic, fantastic. And picking up on that, our subject, what we spoke about, is how young actually is silicone chemistry compared to other organic chemistries? Well,
it started in 1945. You're talking about during World War II. So what, 75 years old versus some of the organic chemistry, especially petroleum-based products, been around for almost 200 years. So it continues to grow and find new applications. So it's still relatively young in the grand scheme of things.
Right. And it's quite a broad question, but how do silicones touch, sort of everyday lives, and on what scale?
Okay, well, if you step back, when it first came out in the 40s, it was a replacement chemistry. It replaced some of the petroleum-based greases that were used to coat engines for airplane engines to take off and fly, especially across the ocean. During World War II, we had probably the first real experience of flying across large expanses of water, especially salt water. And the organic materials just couldn't handle the salt and actually would burn off as the engines would. So you'd have a fair amount of fouling. It was developed and replace that petroleum-based grease and allowed it to start to make those complete flights. So that being said, it was the material was started by Corning Glass, developed this neat little chemistry called silicones. When the government got wind of what it could do, Corning didn't have the ability to produce that material on large scale. So while Dow, a chemical at the time, was producing other materials, so the company Dow Corning started over a handshake and began producing this grease for the war effort. Well, when you step back, some of the things it started is it replaced defoamers used in creams and lotions. And probably one of the first personal care applications, a little bit of dimethicone. In the old days, when you took a hand cream and wiped it on your hand, you would get this white sort of foam forming on your skin. Until that dissipated, you had that white stuff all over your hand. So you had a little dimethicone and it went away. So it started there in the area of personal care, and then it's grown into, it replaced water in the old ban roll-on antiperspirants. For anyone who's from the 50s and 60s and 70s, remember the old ban roll-on was based on water. You rolled it under your arms and you held your arms up so it would dry. Well, then Gillette discovered that if you use the volatile silicones, you could put it on your skin and it evaporated at the temperature of your skin. So you didn't get that cooling sensation. So hence the product was launched called Dry Idea. That was probably one of the largest applications for silicones. At the time was just a side stream or an intermediate. And it's now 50% of your antiperspirant products. So you step into the automotive, all the wire harnesses in your car is based on silicone rubber. There's probably about 100 to 200 pounds of silicone rubber in every single car. It replaced a lot of the organic rubbers that are out there. Then you step into the medical, it's one of the few items you can implant into your body. So they started replacing some of the mechanical joints with silicone rubber joints. I can go on and on and on. You step into auto care, all that car polish formulation, that durability, that water beating and gloss is all based on silicones. So you can step into pharmacy or pharma. It's some of the monomers are used as blocking agents to make pharmaceutical drugs. Glass, all that high-rise glass fronting you see in buildings, all being held up by a silicone adhesive. Silicone glazing are used inside the glass. When you look inside a window, you'll see that metal strip that separates the panes of glass using air as an insulator. Well, the binding agent between the glass and the metal is a silicone adhesive. So it just goes, I could just go on and on and on. We've got antimicrobial agents, substantive. It's one of the few things you can put down on a substrate, and it will maintain that surface is sanitized. It doesn't migrate off, it stays right there. You wash it, it re-exposes its ability to continue to kill bacteria and germs.
Yeah, it's excellent. I mean, it's great what you mentioned about the World War II effort and silicones playing a key role, and it being sort of the creation of silicones with such a sort of humble and humanitarian sort of background in basically bringing back the Air Force safely. It's very, very a nice story, that. Well, my question, next question. With regards to the future of silicones and highly technical applications, how do you feel the landscape of that lies?
You're asking about its use in high-tech applications? Is that the primary question?
Yeah.
Well, it's already used. If you look at your iPhone, that fluorescent, when you touch your phone and it fluoresces and lights up, it's based on a silicone chemistry. When you talk about ceramics, the ceramic coatings, it's based on the silicone coating. Certainly the whole area of pharma, its ability to block and form some of these really novel drugs is based on the use of the monomers that come from the silicone process. We can get into the whole implantable prosthesis area. You know, the medical industry for the use of silicones is quite dynamic. The other big area is transdermal drug delivery. You know, for the longest time, you see these patches. Well, silicone in itself is permeable, so it allows things to pass through its film. In the area of those patches, they can put it into a silicone adhesive, and that drug will control the release. The silicone will allow the control of that release into the bloodstream or through the skin. Those are some of the more larger scale areas, and it just continues to grow as they find more novel drugs. They're going to find more novel adhesives or silicone adhesives to form those patch and produce transdermal drug delivery.
Great. Great. My next question is quite an important one, I think. Do you believe that silicone chemistry gets the attention it deserves and maybe needs from academia, all the way from high school through to university and published papers?
That's a good question, and the answer is no. I mean, I graduated in chemical engineering, so you run the gauntlet with all the different chemistry classes, both inorganic, organic, and then all the synthesis work. And I think the discussion of silicones was relegated to a paragraph in my organic chemistry class. No, we don't see it. And then when we go into the chemical engineering area, there's a lot of material science that don't touch this at all. I think it more has to do with there are so few people moving into the academia to teach this. So it needs to be taught more because it is such a fast-growing, integral part of the chemical world. It's such a safe, it's one of the few materials that are considered VOC exempt. The volatile silicones can be used in a whole host of applications and don't impact the ozone area at all. We can get into its safe properties, needs to really be communicated more, and then the whole chemistry set needs to be discussed at the high school level to bring more people into this industry that seems to be growing globally in leaps and bounds. Right. So no, we don't get enough exposure to in academia. Sure. You may get exposed to it at the master's program or at a PhD level, but certainly not at the lower levels. And it's a relatively simple chemistry to learn.
Yeah. A question that's not on our agenda really. You've mentioned quite a lot since we've been speaking about supply chain issues that you're facing in the US and Yeah, all the challenges you're facing. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, I know you haven't got a glass ball, but do you have a prediction of when all the supply chain issues are going to be resolved so US can get back to doing business as they're good at?
Well, there's a couple of major factors right now with the US economy literally surging in terms of its growth over the rest of the world. We've just got a difficult time moving material internationally. You know, as you look at the silicone manufacturing globally, a lot of it is done overseas now. And trying to bring materials into the US have been a challenge. There's clogs of just volumes of not only just silicone, but all the other materials coming into the US, plugging up the different US ports. You've got containers. So I envision that probably into the second quarter of 2022, we're going to see the logistics side start to work itself out. That being said, then I think with that, the supply of silicones is coming. I don't think it's so much the capacity. There's certainly a tremendous amount of capacity out there. It's just the ability to move the materials into the US in a reasonable time frame. Production here in the US will certainly grow. I anticipate we'll probably see one or two large basic producing production plants going up in the next 10 years. It takes time, but it's going to need it because the growth rate continues to exceed capacity at this point. And that's sort of the other thing that's going on. I think demand currently has exceeded its ability to supply. So we've got that going on at the same time, the logistical nightmares that everyone is facing, not just silicones, but even the retail side are struggling with trying to get product in. Anyone who goes into the retail store seeing shelves a lot thinner than they normally are. And that's just because we can't get stuff into the US fast enough.
Yeah, right, yeah. So my last question really is, I really focused about the show. Why should people attend and why should people exhibit at Silicone Expo, which is in the second quarter of 2022? So perfect timing.
Yeah, it is. It'll be a lot of attendance there about asking about supply and demand. Well, it's the first time where you can see all the different facets where silicone touches come into one area. Up to this point, you'll have a rubber industry discussion or meeting, and then one section will be about just silicones. If you have a personal care session, all the chemistries are there, but as well as also be a portion discussing about silicones. And one of the papers you'll see one or two papers about silicones or silanes at the different specific industries, but silicones have now grown to a level, it's a greater than a $60 billion market. It's the time that it has its own industry show for an opportunity for people from all different industries to come and see all the different things that silicones can talk about. All the major producers will be there. So it's an opportunity for customers to come visit the different types of silicone suppliers that they currently work with, as well as exposed to some of the other people they didn't realize were in this industry. So it's a great opportunity for both people using silicones as well as the industry itself.
Yeah, that's the absolute focus. The focus is to make silicone manufacturers be sought after rather than, having to try and find your markets elsewhere. And that's the whole focus of the show. Steve, that's it. I'm very grateful for your time today. I know you're a very, very busy man and you've got a long drive ahead of you, but anything you'd like to add? Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. This will all go online and I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Good luck.
No worries. See you in June. Take care.
Let's hope to. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.